I'm excited to get to redo that intro and announce that we will be on Odyssey Radio starting on March 1st. And good God, guys, it's going to be great being able to share once a week with you for No Man's Land. Just an update on news and social media to be able to do pop ins is going to be super exciting for me. And it's slightly different than being able to check in with my spirituality, my paranormal Sarah, my pop ins that I do with astrology, alchemy, hermetic work, and empiricism. All of that, of course, and relevant to parapsychology, relevant to psychology, relevant to understanding reality, metaverse, we as we know it, people and how they behave. Yes. But the No Man's Land segment is really for kind of news, to discuss news, things where you're at, and mostly just a rant because I need to get it off my chest. And I want to be able to get those perspectives from other people as well. It's not just letting social media abuse me, but using it to better understand my reality. So that's the goal. And some news came out today. What news isn't coming out today? There's always news, some, disheartening news, concerning news, conspiracy theory news, news of, animal behavior, strange animal behavior. Zoologists out there, chime in, please. I'm not a zoologist. Birds and major flocks across Mexico. You may or may not have seen the viral video of like hundreds of thousands, 100,000, 5,000, 500. The video is quite alarming. You see a huge flock of birds murmurating just fall right to the ground, and then hundreds of them dead on impact and not getting up, and a few of them fluttering away. And then, the flock moves on, and the street and area is littered with, and a lot of property damage, dead birds, yellow-headed blackbirds, which it always is usually some type of like swallow or blackbird, or we think of canaries going into the coal mine. It is an indication that there could be something in the air. And I think that the immediate news response was there was a chimney. There was a weather balloon that the birds flew through and collapsed. I don't know if that's true. Of course, a lot of people will say 5G may or may not be true. HARP may or may not be true. Carbonate, chemtrails may or may not be true. All sorts of really crazy things happening in and around. And the news, I want you to watch closely with this, because you look at it, and causation does not mean correlation, and correlation does not mean causation, but you kind of start to look at variables. And if you want to get lucky, you look at all the things going on around. You pay attention. And the animals in the water, not just in the ravines and in the canals and, baby beluga in Florida, but sharks coming on shore, sharks coming and beaching themselves, blue whales beaching themselves, a lot of large creatures, giant squids that are usually, abyss, deep water, down in the trenches, kind of, you know, coming up and swimming in open water. The dolphins, frantic, bashing their heads into dams and canals and clogging some of the man-made issues. God damn you, animals and nature, doing what you might be naturally doing. But it looks as if, and it's not just the United States, we're talking all over the world, and not just marine life, but marine life that has, and the zoologist, the reason it caught my attention is sometimes it's conspiracy. Sometimes you're like, oh, that's just all over the world. Japan, giant red sea squids, guys, the kind that we see drawn on like the Viking ships on these old like sepia like looking maps, like deep, like Loch Ness creatures and shit. Yeah, showing up and Cape Cod, South America, the Madagascar, like really weird, and not just marine animals. Animals acting strangely, and not just natural animals, but animals in the zoo. That's where it caught my attention, is some of the animals that the zoologist had said, hey, it's one thing that in a natural environment out in nature, if there is a shift in the water, if something has leaked, if an earthquake has erupted underneath, and, a lava pocket has released methane, and you have, fish floating to the top, If it's environmental, it's environmental. If it's something that we might think is hereditary or hormonal, biological in nature, that's totally cool. And in which case we want to speculate. But some of these creatures that have only ever known aquarium life, they've only ever known captivity. They don't remember, yes, they have natural predators, but they're responding to nothing in the tank, water that's chlorine and otherwise normal and natural, and having really horrific fight or flight responses. We're going to say high arousal responses. We're going to say kicked up a notch. But that's why, for me working in psychology, me looking at, gosh, there's been a big flux in this. We've been seeing the numbers go up and down over here. When you're looking at publications in Psychology Today, Psychiatry Today, Psychiatric Times, you're looking at Parapsychological Association, you're looking at whatever, newsletters and alumni things you are a part of in your own expert field. For me, that's law, criminology, forensics, psychology, neuropsychology in this area. And so arousal responses, GABA inhibitors, neurotransmitters, things that happen in and around the brain, passing through the blood-brain barrier, how we respond if we've had too much red food dye, how a person might be addicted to aggression if they have temporal lobe damage. Like, this is the realm in which I work and have worked for a long time. Now seeing this in reference to the pandemic, seeing, okay, well, people have been in captivity, people are isolating, how are people responding? We're seeing mental health levels. Oh, we're seeing police. Oh, we're seeing this happen. We're seeing this flux in society. We're seeing it in a macro. We're seeing it in a micro. Now we're seeing it cross species. We're seeing strange behaviors where throughout this whole week, we've had a lot of solar flares, satellites being kicked out, orbit changing, the Mayans telling us the poles are shifting. The poles are shifting, like in that Donnie Darko, Jake Gyllenhaal movie. That was 2012. End of the world, I think, is what that was called. But in all of those possible scenarios, major change happening and us trying to adjust. And in that adjustment transition period, chaos and arousal be crazy. In that chaos and arousal be crazy, a lot of people are in a reaction state. They're in a high arousal state. They're in a fight or flight, meaning they're either doing a whole lot, doing it without thinking, or they're going into their holes, into their hidey holes, and doing too much thinking and doing nothing. And this extreme is causing some issues. And we see it manifest in a lot of different ways. But one of the ways, and I just want to share this with you because you guys, social services, we don't make a lot of money. I dare say you could probably make more money managing a McDonald's than you can being a forensic psychologist with a doctorate degree. If I knew then what I knew now. Anyway, so PR, helping PR, doing social services, PR, working with social workers, working with, did you know Minneapolis has a new crisis team? We've always had crisis teams, but we do have new pilot programs. Yes, people are trying to defund police and somehow refund and restart new things that look just like police, and then trying to figure out, like, why is this and why is that? And this somehow censorship of a deep understanding, the difference between saying and comprehending is like weird. Anyway, the news, says Rusty. Come on, give us the news. Well, there was an article put out today in Minneapolis, living in Minnesota, being relative to working with law enforcement. The George Floyd issue is a constant, scab. The recent no-knock warrant in the news that, we're going through that, and some of the protests right now in Minneapolis are still live. People up and down the streets and businesses, our mask mandates just lifted because our Minneapolis mayor and Governor Fry and or Governor Waltz and Mayor Fry and like all these people having to make major decisions, being quite pressured by society and the people that live around it. Good to see, by the way, a response to that. But it shouldn't be against and for, it should be with. George Floyd, officer snaps when asked why he didn't try to stop Derek Chauvin. Okay, this headline, it's an attention grabber. It's meant to what? Snaps? When asked why? What? When asked to reason, they emotionally freak out? This is going to attract both liberals and conservatives. This is playing the game. But here we go. I wanted to read this article because I understand that it is just like a tabernacle piece of shit. This is just whoa. But I want to read it because I want people to see the narrative. If I'm to go into this as a forensic psychologist and be navigating this for psyops, if I'm going to be editing this so that it can instigate via propaganda and not inform, how one might write this article, how it's written. Former Minneapolis police officer Tao snapped during testimony on Wednesday when the prosecutor questioned why he didn't try to stop Derek Chauvin during the murder of George Floyd. The use of murder there is chosen. Assist U.S. Attorney Leanne Bell pressed Mr. Tao under cross-examination about why he didn't tell Chauvin to get off Mr. Floyd as he knelt on his neck for over 9 minutes and 29 seconds while the black man begged for air, saying, "I can't breathe." That is a very emotive narrative. That is, there's a lot of adjectives there, particularly the only information was 9 minutes and 29 seconds, which I don't believe is what they said in court. So there's a little discrepancy in that, but not that that matters. It's what is happening. The quoting of a dying person with their last known words. And they describe him as a black man. Don't use his name. To get off Mr. Floyd as he knelt on his neck while the black man begged for air. I don't like someone using a last words or last testimony uh, and just referring to you as a generalized black man, because that really takes the emotive narrative to the next level. If you're writing this, you know why exactly they did that. You're quoting someone right before black man. It shouldn't be relative. Race shouldn't matter. A police officer or person in authority shouldn't be abusing their power regardless of what the person looks like. If the person is abusing their power because of their position and they're doing it because the person under them is a said criminal, you still need to be abiding by the law that you are under oath to protect and serve. So this paragraph is just bothersome. Quote, "I think I would trust a 19-year veteran to figure it out," Mr. Tao fired back at the prosecutor. First of all, we've had a long time to prepare for this. If this indeed is a unplanned emotional response, or heaven forbid, planned emotional response, I think I would trust. Do you think or do you know? Because there is a difference. And in neurolinguistic programming, you either think or you know. When you're a trained police officer and when you're being prosecuted against, that answer, and you should be expected, by the way, your lawyers, shame on them if you're listening, should know that of course you're going to be tested. So did you or didn't you? And did you know or not? Because premeditation, this idea, so maybe they were going with the, we want him to play stupid. Let's play stupid. Sarah, concerning the people you work with, are there more and more nowadays that are feeling concerned with what's going on in the, oh yes. I work with offenders predominantly and with law enforcement, and in both areas. I do crisis with law enforcement and veterans, so helping them with their mental health, and then I do treatment with sex offenders and violent offenders, helping them manage their behaviors post-offense. So reducing recidivism is the goal, and minimizing mental health concerns is the goal across the thing. But my modality is neurolinguistic programming. So when I look at the use of propaganda in PsyOps, and Veritas is a real thing, by the way, this is a thing. Mockingbird is a real thing, not just a movie. I think I would trust a 19-year veteran to figure it out. You don't think you know. And just because someone has more years than you, is this an assumption that they are more experienced or know better or know right from wrong to you? You're kind of establishing a hierarchy here, and also a hierarchy based on not information, but on time. And you kind of said that by the whole I think, and it is because you don't know. So you're using a 19-year veteran, you're using a label, you're using something very subjective to establish something you should know right from wrong, and doesn't need any of those things to determine. So Mr. Tao, immediately, you're a piece of shit. Which, mind you, I know these people and have met these people, so I don't know them personally, but and I don't say that to you as like a personal reflection, but that comment, that statement, Shame. Mr. Tao, a veteran officer of 8 years, was the first of three former officers to take the stand in their federal civil rights trial on Tuesday morning in Minnesota. J. Alexander Kueng, Thomas Lane, and Mr. Tao are all accused of violating Mr. Floyd's civil rights during his murder on Memorial Day 2020. All three are charged with one count of depriving Mr. Floyd of his civil rights by failing to provide him with the medical care he needed. Was this medical care for the neck injury that was being inflicted upon him by an untrained officer or an emotional officer? Or is this the failing to provide him with medical care from the overdose that he ensued by swallowing the said fentanyl and other things while being pulled over? Or is this providing him with the medical care for the panic attack and mental illness that he clearly had? We're unsure. It's not said for certain. Mr. Tao and Mr. Kueng are also charged with one count of depriving Mr. Floyd of his civil rights by failing to intervene to stop Chauvin's unreasonable use of force. Here we go. This should really be the only thing that people are concerned about, I think, and probably is the only thing that people are concerned about. Because when we say the three charges for depriving Floyd of his civil rights of failing to provide him with medical care is subjective, and it would be under the assumption that there is an assessment to be had. And if you're not a trained medical professional, which there was one there, you're in the middle of a set arrest. So you need to secure the environment first and make sure everyone else is safe before being able to even provide you with medical care. And so that your training, you're not depriving him. You would need to do your chain of action first. The issue is whether or not we failed to intervene and stop Chauvin, right? That's what we're of unreasonable use of force. Both counts allege the officer's actions resulted in Mr. Floyd's death. That not only was it Chauvin, but then had someone stepped in and said, "Hey, get off of him!" That the officer would have been like, "Oh, you're right. What am I doing?" And that would have changed the line of events. The three officers plead not guilty to these charges. White Officer Chauvin knelt on Mr. Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Repeat that. During an arrest over a suspected, it was $20 counterfeit bill. And also the young child who called from the gas station who said this person's been here for a very long time and we all watched the surveillance. It was weird and he was pacing and it was strange and he was under the influence. We know he was under the influence and he was a known drug dealer and he was in recovery, so he was probably desperate. And he wasn't in his home state. He was from Texas, but we all know, here we are. White Officer Chauvin, let's pause. I'm going to say this, and I just want to say this because this is very important. What does that matter? Well, it matters because we're trying to draw a racial divide. Okay, I see you. But why does that matter? Because if you're trying to draw a racial divide, let's just do this in our mind. We are going to label him white. Maybe he doesn't identify as white. Maybe he feels like that's discriminatory. Maybe he feels like being considered a white, racist, patriarch police officer at this point, because it is a hate crime now if it's against a police officer, that uniform, that label, that just the way he looks instead of putting veteran officer or years, decades veteran officer, instead of describing anything about the information relevant to this scenario, we describe him as white, but not Caucasian, not peach, not half white, not mostly white, not, thanks to his 23andMe, 63% Irish and 24% Italian. No, we won't. We will strip any remotely somewhat, depending on how much melanin you have. I think you need that thing from Home Depot that judges your color, that you then get to either have that privilege or don't have that privilege, or maybe you get to have that privilege when you want it, because that's how privilege works, by fucking definition, or you get that discriminatory thing because, oh my God, is racism and discrimination on both sides equally distributed based on perception and everybody has eyes in their goddamn head? Oh my God. Racism isn't two-sided. It's not one-sided. Is it five-sided? How many sides does it have? The hexagram tetrahedron of racism continues, because maybe the fact that he's an Irishman immigrant. He has been oppressed and repressed, and that's why he knelt for that long, because maybe he was an Irish boxer in sobriety of his drinking whiskey, and it needed to be 8 minutes, because maybe he's a white Texan that's bull rided his whole life, and that's what matters, and he was so conditioned he just didn't fucking know. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Oh, it doesn't. But it does to some people, to a certain point, because we matter what someone looks like, but not the content of who they are or why they're doing what they're doing. Which, if you don't care why they're doing what they're doing, why are you wasting your time writing about it? Anyway, footage of the encounter sent shockwaves across the globe and led to nationwide and international protests calling. Was it a protest? Was it a riot? Was it a protest? It depends on if you wanted your insurance to pay for it. Oh, it was about money? Well, it depends. It's a protest if you wanted the grant. It's a riot if you wanted the insurance. Oh, okay. Just checking on that. Calling for racial injustice. Was it about race, or was it about a police officer kneeling on a man? Was it about Mr. Floyd, or was it about black man? I need to know, because I got to get the paint ready for the mural. I need to know right now. Are we colorblind, or are we not colorblind? What are we mad about? The video shows Mr. Kyung was kneeling on Mr. Floyd's back while Mr. Lane held down his legs. Everybody grab the man! Hold him down! Secure him while he's being arrested, because he's kicking. Mr. Tao was holding back bystanders and stopping them from intervening. Under cross-examination from the prosecutor, which was disrupted by repeated objections, I object, from the defense, Mr. Tao admitted that at one point he could see Mr. Floyd looked up and even looked unconscious, but he didn't step in. I think that's enough, guys. But he didn't step in. The court was shown a still image from a video showing the officer looking at the 3 other officers restraining Mr. Floyd. Mr. Tao was also asked if he had communicated a request from the crowd to check Mr. Floyd's pulse or voiced concerns that the black man was no longer speaking. And he said no. Usually, and I will just say this based on, and I do have a Minnesota law enforcement degree. I mean, I know it's only from Rasmussen School, and I know it's only a 20-week program, the police program there. We only shoot 5,000 rounds. I know, it's limited. But anyone can go online and read the statutes, anyone, and I encourage you all to know your rights and know the law. And if you want to know the training and curriculum, even just with like basic things like human decency, not taught in the police program, but kind of taught, like maybe it isn't. Oh, where did you learn your human decency? I'll wait for that certificate. Earlier, Mr. Tao had testified that officers were trained to use their knees to restrain suspects in the police academy, and indeed even restrained to put knees and kneeling knees and other body parts on the back of the neck of a person. Really? It's true. That is part of the training, to restrain. You mean don't tase them first? You can restrain them at all costs? Well, not death. You don't restrain them to death. That's where there was obviously a problem. But restrain so that you don't have to tase, or restrain so that you don't have to use any other form of force, or heaven forbid lethal force, like that you're not using any pointed objects, or you're beating baton stick, because oh my God, beating a black man in the streets of Minneapolis while onlookers doing nothing held their phones in shock. I'm so traumatized. Please give me likes. Please give me likes. Watch this. That it's a real hard thing to get on board with when you're trying to talk to me about integrity and decency and how a person should respond out of judgment when you are not doing what it is you would want someone else to do. Claims that his role in the fatal encounter was crowd control. Tao said he was a human traffic cone. He assumed his colleagues were just taking care of Mr. Floyd. He trusted his fellow officers to know how to perform their job and to do the right thing. So he was doing this while a crowd of people are coming up screaming at him. He made an assumption that his fellow officers, he looked at them and went, oh shit, okay, whoa. Was it right? Was it wrong? He said he never had any physical contact with the black man. Mr. Kyung was the second former officer to take the stand, and he told the court he'd only worked 3 shifts as a fully trained prior officer to that day. He didn't even know what he was doing. He was a field role model. What? This guy, so he's just putting his hands in the air going, he's going to play the I don't know card. He said that the only a mention was made of officers' duty to intervene during his training. Now, let me tell you, have you ever been in a chain of command? Military, brothers and sisters, at Thanksgiving in the buffet line, military, law enforcement, even a fireman. Even the Mary Kay hierarchy pyramid scheme understands the chain of command. Shit rolls downhill. Downhill. That's gravity. So it's also human nature. Okay. And so this, usually you don't question your authority. Usually you aren't going to question people in the middle of a panic. Usually you are definitely not going to break rapport, chain of command, or any of that if you do have established trust in your comrades and you are in the middle of performing like a high risk duty. It takes a lot in the middle of the sandwich line, the buffet line, at high tide for a bystander to stop in. The Kitty Genevieve's effect. We know 50, 60 people can be standing there and nobody will do a goddamn thing. Mm. Mm. Chauvin reached a plea deal with federal prosecutors in December, pleading guilty to the civil rights charge in exchange for avoiding joining this trio and being moved to a federal prison. Woo! Yeah, you wouldn't want to be him in a federal. But this came after the veteran officer of 19 years was convicted of murder and manslaughter at his state trial in April. Mr. Tao, Mr. Kang, and Mr. Lane also faced trial on state charges of aiding and abetting murder and manslaughter. The trial has been delayed multiple times and is now expected to begin in June. You know what? It's going to be pushed off so many times they're going to be able to appeal it on behalf of due process, and everybody out protesting that does not know the law is going to be able to get these people navigated through the system and be right back out serving as police officers somewhere else. It's a real struggle here. So I want to go to the chat and I want to see what you guys have to say about this because this is really relevant news. Questions. Did any bystanders tell or even ask Chauvin to stop? I don't remember, but I thought people did. Yeah, in the trial, there was an EMT. She was a ridiculous woman who came in and was like, I know how to do everyone's job. And she was like, I told him to stop. But here's the deal. Again, when you're in the middle of restraining a person, when you're in the middle of downtown fucking Minneapolis, right down the way from Lake Street, if you're at all familiar with the city, I mean, this is a bustling part in the afternoon. Traffic is pretty dangerous spot to even have. I don't know why they even pulled. Well, I guess they didn't pull him over. The car was parked and they got out and then were following up with the counterfeit check. But the location was actually like a really bad location for any of this to happen. It just was a great many variables coming together. But it doesn't mean that a trained person shouldn't have been able to had successful arrest. But have I ever heard of an officer taken to court where the judge slaps him or her on the wrist with no jail time, out the door, and pushed past the law system? Yeah, it's called Friends with Benefits. And believe it or not, our legal system is still a human system made up of humans. And that's why conflicts of interest, that's why we should not be okay with who our president just appointed to some of his particular part, because the conflict of interest. Absolutely, I do not think it's okay. Absolutely, it is not fair. And it is why Lady Liberty, and when she's standing behind the judge, is blind. Okay. Did any bystanders tell or even ask? Yes. All things brain was us into thinking the police do whatever they want and we must bow down to them. It's brain. It's not so much brainwashing for the police because the police, what I love is the police serve and protect the people. Right? No, that's not right. And that's been the false narrative that's being fed to people. Police don't protect people. People protect people. We protect each other. It starts with you. You have to protect yourself. That comes with being a knowledgeable and aware citizen. It comes with personal responsibility and accountability. Now, when you have that for yourself, then you expect that of the people around you, your children, and the people that you preside over. the people that you are a role model to as the shit rolls downhill. And that we then elect the best of our people, the people of our people, to serve the laws we put into law. I'm just a bill. The side of the car is not I protect and serve you. I protect and serve the law. And the law protects the people. It's indirect, but it's very important. It's what keeps police from being subjective. It's what keeps a police officer from being judge, jury, and executioner when showing up for any kind of a call. You're dispatched as a police officer in uniform, not Sarah. I'm not to think on behalf of Sarah. I'm thinking on behalf of the uniform and the badge I'm wearing, which means the laws. And I may not even agree with the law. Taking someone to jail over a quarter bag of weed? That's fucking ridiculous. When I worked in drug treatment and girls were coming in with IV heroin use, pregnant, and not seeing any jail time, and somebody with a quarter bag of weed who just lost their job, who's a dependent to nobody, is going to prison for 4 years. Do I agree with that? No. Do I turn a blind eye? No. Do I try and be fair and trust the system? If I work for the system, then yes. That's really hard for people to understand, but that's why it's so important in the wording that you understand that you serve the law. They don't serve you. They're not there to serve you. They're not there to pick up your fucking groceries. The firefighters don't come to help you up and down the staircase. You do that for yourself. You have to have personal autonomy. If you do not protect your autonomy, if you do not guard that privacy and security for yourself, no one's going to do it for you. And if you sell it out to someone to do for you, you don't deserve it because you're stupid. It doesn't work that way. And that's where I get frustrated is it's this idea that police should have to do anything. Police act as an extension of their people. When I see that Minneapolis has an extremely corrupt police force, but then I look at Minneapolis and I see that half the fucking people that live in that town, yes, I'm one of them, they don't work, they don't do shit, they destroy personal property, they're illiterate, they don't know how to read, they don't know their own personal history. If someone says I'm showing up with TikTok and Gorilla News and some free markers and water and 20% off your Walgreens, that people will be there before you can fucking toot. It's ridiculous. It's low intelligence, high mental health, low care for hygiene, family, value system, spirituality, mind, body, spirit. What the fuck is that? It doesn't exist in the people there. And so the delegated few to protect them of its finest. Oh, the mayor? You expected different of its people? Oh, the governor? You expected different of its people? Oh. Stop it. Stop being fucking stupid. Look at it. It's a domino effect, and it's easy to see. And it's not the police's fault. It's my fault. It's your fault. It's an individual fault. If I think it's anyone else's fault, I'm part of the problem. And it's why I go to work every day. It's when I lay in my soft bed and I think, oh, I just want to lay here and I just want to drink coffee and I just want to put my middle finger in the air and collect a check and do nothing. And you know what? I'd like to go live in, check in on my dad and see how he's doing and just, do nothing. I'd like to just do nothing. I'd like to do a lot of things. I'd like to go get a massage. I'd like to get my toenails done. I'd like to go buy pears and eat goat cheese on my fucking salad. But I work. And I go to work and I work with offenders and I work with veterans and I work with law enforcement and I hear their story and I try and help make it better because I see that for me and my children, it ain't very good. Well, who's going to fix it? Who's going to fix it? I don't do that anymore. I don't. And I think maybe that's part of the problem. If you're looking for somebody else to do it for you, it'll never get done. It's really frustrated. The reason we are a dependent system, the reason we think it's someone else's fault, the reason we don't know anything is we are dependent. We're dependent on the government. And as long as we are dependent, we are a victim. We are a parasite. We are going to be shaken off like a bad case of fleas. And don't say, the more intelligent, witty, funny, don't care about offending someone, telling it like it is because you need to hear it, didn't tell you. Because I'm pretty sure George Carlin told me a long time ago. And when I read that fucking trash article, I get really frustrated. The people that I know are going to take effort, love, passion, really, really, really cool emotions. And they're going to go march up and down the streets of Minneapolis with a piece of cardboard that'll end up trash for a homeless man to use as a blanket by the end of the night when the sun goes down. And hopefully enough journalists show up to grab the wrong person to be entertaining to interview, and nobody knows the difference. And it just and nobody knows the charges. Nobody knows Tao. I don't know him. But I bet he has a family. I bet he's somebody's son. I bet when he said, I would think a veteran, heaven forbid I be so interested in who he is that I make the actual discriminatory stereotypical assumption that because we didn't refer to him as a Vietnamese man or a Hmong man, well, if we referred to him as a Hmong man, it could be discriminatory. He's not the white or the black. He was Mr. Tao the entire article. So I'm kind of interested in, well, if we had said that, it could be, well, then we'd have to actually do like the highlighting of how badly Asians have been stigmatized by crime, especially in Minneapolis. Why is that? Well, because we have a huge community, among community that, like a huge gang community, even. And that culture doesn't trust government entities, communism, because they've been taught not to trust their government history. They know their history, they're fucking smart. And, dare I be stereotypical of Asians to be smart, but also have a deep culture of tradition, long standing tradition, deeper by centuries and centuries than Americans to ever understand. But if we would try to understand it, at the very least respect it, then we would know that the chain of command would never, ever be questioned, ever, because that's not a part of their culture. Oh, but we don't really care about culture. We just care about the looks. But we can't really tell the difference between a Chinese and a Japanese and a Korean and a Hmong. So we're just not going to say anything in the article because, you know, specifically racist. I get real fucking upset about that. Don't pretend you care about someone's culture and then negate it. And then say that you don't care about their culture, but you do enough to fucking throw them under the bus with it. If you don't, I mean, I can't even read the news anymore. Left, right, or otherwise, all of it is trash. It's very, very important when you read it. Just highlight it like a teacher with a red pen and see what is the intention of this and how much of this was informative to me. If it's not informing you of how to better your community, if it's not giving you information that helps you feel safe, secure, and certain, trash it. Trash it. Get rid of it. And also, if you don't know the source, question it. Be skeptical of it. Get your red pen out. Just because that's from the Minneapolis Tribune or the Independent or the NPR, it'll be slanted everywhere. Same story, different story. Why? Why? Why is that? I think it's issue. I think it's just, it's interesting to me. If they really wanted to talk about the racial issues, they'd need to talk about racial tensions between Black and Asian communities instead of just blaming white supremacy. Man, it's just the white black is so easy to see that it's a dumbed down, like, well, that person's white and he's Black. When I remember, like in middle school, having a really close connection with a girlfriend of mine, she was African American. And I remember her crying because she was upset. She had come from Liberia, and all the American Black people call themselves African, but they're not. They hadn't been circumcised like she had been with a piece of glass shared in the tribe. They didn't know how to speak French like she did. They weren't from across the pond like she. And how could they be using that? I said, yeah. In America, your history is used for its benefit only and censored for its benefit only. Whether you're a Rockefeller or a Franklin or a Jim Crow, it'll be edited for the political benefit. And unfortunately, whether you're Black, white, Asian, mixed, race, female, one titty, two testicles, three, if you're human, you've probably dealt with human indignity. You've probably dealt with human evil. Disgusting nastiness that humans can do. Hate. Hate, 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 hate. And yeah. Are you a Black American or a white American? Oh, cool. We're both American. Oh, you're Black? I'm white? Well, what does that really mean? Well, my ancestors are from so and so. Really? How long down the line? Because my ancestors are from so and so, but how long down the line? You want to be stuck in that century, this century, that century? What century are we talking about? What PTSD, PTSI, previous post DNA activated trauma are we wanting to choose today? You know, because yeah, as Rusty says, there was a little German guy in history, some little white guy we may not otherwise know the differentiation, that some other white guy that was French told him he couldn't go to the art school. And then one white guy got mad at another white guy and then put a whole bunch of other white people in a concentration camp. And some people said it was only the Jews, when a lot of gypsies and twins and children and orphans and Catholics and non-denominational and advocates and protesters went to Dachau and Auschwitz too. And right now, there's more than 1,200. Count them. More than 1,200. How many are there? Well, we don't know for certain because China won't tell us, but there's a whole fucking lot, like more than 1,000. More than 1,000 concentration centers right now. A genocide happening right now in an international crimes court right now, as someone today writes their shitty little article about Minneapolis and a Black man and a white man doing this. There's an international crimes court happening right now that's a little bit bigger about people doing horrible things to people. Right now. Concentration camps. Right now. And it's not about black or white. It's about what you're saying. It's about what information you're spreading. Spreading like a virus? Information? Yeah. It's weird. So be careful out there and be skeptical. Be aware. If you know somebody in the Peace Corps, tell them to reach out to the person that they were in the Peace Corps with back when they were actually in the Peace Corps and see if those people that were there are there anymore, because they may not be. It's real. So every single one of us, that's what I love. Every single one of us, even if I have a lot of melanin or a little melanin, or I'm faking my melanin, or I want melanin, or I wish I had melanin, or I'm ashamed of my melanin, regardless of what I look like and you look like, we're sharing this moment right now on this dirt ball in space together. And my ancestors and your ancestors have done some pretty heinous things and amazing things. And you and me right now, as humans living right now, our neighbors and community members and our elected officials, our best of our best, are doing really heinous things to people right now. And if you think that I want to give any credence to a piece of cardboard that you're protesting down the thing about taking down a statue from 2 centuries ago when people like little kids right now are making your Air Jordans, you think I give a flying fuck? If you're not learning the lesson and making a change for the future, you're stuck in the past and crying about it, man, please redirect that energy. Please redirect that energy. There's people right now. There's people right now. Get out of yourself. Be mad just enough to ignite a power under your ass to make change. Don't, don't, don't. Don't be a victim. All of us are. And the choice to continue to be is right now. I'm not reading that bullshit and taking it for truth. And I'm going to be real upset if anybody that I know that I hold people that I know accountable. I'm not just going to block you. Well, they're not my friend because of no, no, no. I'm going to say, why in the what? Take me back. Take me there. Where did you hear this? What's going on? And just because you think differently than me doesn't mean I don't like you or that I don't love you. I have a great many friends and acquaintances that think very different things than me. Trust me, I am crazy. But don't go out hurting people. And don't hurt yourself. Don't read that shit and think it's real. Find the truth in it and use it. Be healthy, be happy, and do what you can today to make today better and tomorrow better. And look at the news. Some crazy stuff in the news. Things that aren't in the mainstream headlines, especially if you're America. Okay? So check in on that. The Trudeau doing some stuff with cryptocurrency, we're going to get into some real crazy. See, if you right now don't have all of your net worth in gold nuggets or something, and somebody were to just be able to go, pew, Nat Geo's Blackout, it was a fall, like a long short series. If you can't trade your watch or your red bottom shoes or think that your ground coffee isn't going to be currency, how independent are you really? How independent are you really? This awareness is about what you don't see, not what you see. It's what you don't see. And if you're wanting to be non judgmental, shut your eyes. And if you're wanting to love people because of their people, stop fucking looking at them in a uniform or what color their skin is. Or, I mean, I'm done. Because now we don't even read the article to expect news. We read the article and go, oh, yeah? Was he black or white? Did they say? Did the person who shot up the school, what was he? The suspect. Did they say? Oh, they didn't say? Oh, we know what that means. What? Excuse me? That's pathetic. That's a reflection of our journalism. And those are the people that we have spreading our news. Call their fucking boss. Tell them that they're piss poor at their job, that you don't mean to cause drama or cause trouble, but your boss expects you to do your job. They need to do their job. Hold yourself accountable. Worry about you and let other people know. One time's really all you need that I see you, but I don't see you, but I see you. Do better. Do better. Do better, be better. I don't know. It's just a rant. I just get really upset about it, guys. Obviously, you can see this. Anyway, it's a big deal. I end up having to do these like, can you read over this article? Can you explain this to me? And yeah, I work with a demographic of law enforcement and offenders. I work on both ends of the spectrum. And so I see both and I feel both and I hear both. And in sex offense, it's not always males that are sex offenders. And in criminals, it's not always a black man that's a offender. And in serial killers, it's not always the 30-year-old white male. And in police shootings, it's not always the police officer. It's like, I don't understand how these generalizations can be a hate crime and the he, she, they respect me at all cost or I'll cancel your life. Respect me and love me or else I'll hate you to death. I just don't. I just can't. It's really frustrating. So I just wanted to give you that little piece of information and let you know that if you're reading the articles today and you're hearing any of this spooked talk, especially in Minnesota, um, please don't fall victim to it. Do not be a victim to it. Look for it in the information it can provide and move along. And misinformation is not a thing. It's either information that you use or don't use. And it is therefore going to formulate an opinion that you either have or don't have. And then you either have an opinion or a fact. Don't do any of this misinformation bullshit, censorship crap. Don't fall for it. We don't need more words. We need more understanding. We don't need more bitching and moaning and screaming and protesting. We need more, you know, love. So, anyway, that's my spiel, and I'm sticking to it. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday. I've got to get back to work. So, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go cool off. I'm going to go call my friend, have me a ginger ale. It's a Q beer. It's Q. She's one of them. I'm not. I might be. Bitch, I might be. But anyway, I love you. I love you dearly. If no one's told you that lately, we're here on this ball of dirt together, and we're hanging in there like a hair in a biscuit. So, see you later. Listen to some good music, says Samantha. Yeah. And if you are still hanging in here joining me in the chat, why don't you post below where you're from? Maybe tag a friend that would like to catch us next time. And what music are you listening to lately? I've been listening to Saint Motel. I've been listening to Apache. I've been listening to Reeve Khalil. Man, I even busted out some Justin Biebs the other day. Some Justin Biebs. Anyway, it's Thursday, almost Friday. We'll see you again tomorrow, guys. If you're in Kansas City, I'll be in Kansas City this weekend. So I will try and catch you. I'm there doing work, so I can't escape for very long. Maybe even just 5 minutes or 10 minutes at a time, which is really sad, but it's the way it is. And until then, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.